Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I accept. All right, let's do it. All right, we're good to go?
Yep.
All right. I want to call to order the Tuesday, March 1st, 2018 meeting of the Urbana MOR Development Review Board. Could we get a roll call, please?
Yes. Mr. Cho? Here. Mr. Kunkel?
Here.
Mr. Rush?
Here.
Mr. Weiskopf?
Here.
Okay.
We have a quorum. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are not.
Okay. Everybody get a chance to review the minutes from the January 25th special meeting?
Motion to approve minutes from.
Motion by Matt.
Second.
All right. Second by Adam. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Minutes are approved. Any communications?
No.
Well, we don't have any continued public hearings. I don't think we have any old business. Let's get right to it. New public hearings. We're going to open public hearing for DRB 2018-01, request by St. Nicholas Orthodox Church for site plan approval of a building addition in the MOR zoning district at 312 West Elm Street. And we'll start with our staff presentation.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Okay. So this is, as was said in the introduction, site plan review for the St. Nicholas Orthodox Church at 312 West Elm Street. The Development Review Board has to review all site plans for new buildings and for building additions in the MOR district. So that's why we're having this public hearing tonight. Just for a brief zoning analysis, so this property is obviously within the MOR district. Churches are permitted by right in that district, and there's been a church at this site for at least the past 45 years. These site plans will require some variances, so the applicant has also submitted applications to the Zoning Board of Appeals for variances that they would require. And those variances will be considered at the March 21st Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Okay, so on to the review criteria. The first criteria are from the zoning ordinance. And criterion number 1 is compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. This states that proposals shall demonstrate consistency with the intent of the MOR zoning district. And that intent includes that land uses are limited in scale and intensity, designed to be compatible with existing structures in the district. It says the district is intended to encourage the adaptive reuse of existing older structures, and new construction shall be designed and constructed in a manner that is consistent with the character of the district. For this criteria, in reviewing the site plan proposal, the board should consider the building's location, orientation, setbacks, scale, bulk, massing, and architectural design. So for a staff analysis on this criterion, the immediate neighborhood surrounding the building has a variety of building types and uses. There's apartments, duplexes, single-family houses, commercial buildings, and there are other churches within a few blocks. Buildings are generally close to the street. Most of them are 2.5 to 3 stories tall, and their main entrances face the street. The architectural style, and I'll pull up the. Okay, that's good elevation. So this is looking from Elm Street. So the architectural style would be unique to this district, but that's because the style is unique to Orthodox churches, and it's the only one in the neighborhood. But the building would be compatible with the neighborhood character in terms of its use, its scale, its height, and orientation. In many ways, it would improve these elements over the existing building, which, if you saw on the original slide, is pretty nondescript as is. Criterion 2 is for parking and access. So the parking lot in this proposal wouldn't change at all with the proposed building additions. So this is really a non-factor. There is landscaping that provides some screening between the lot and Elm Street, and that's not going to be touched for this. Okay, criterion 3 is screening and landscaping. And that criterion says that proposal shall demonstrate the preservation of existing natural features where practical. The board shall consider the effects that the proposal may have on the landscaping characteristics of the area and may require landscaping measures to mitigate any potential loss of character. It also says that retention of street trees along Green and Elm Street corridors is encouraged. So the proposed building additions would take the place of some of the existing landscaped areas. Let's see if I can pull up. Okay, there's the site plan. So there's some landscaping over here currently on the east side. There's some down here in front of the building as well. The additions would cover some of that existing landscaping up. The plans are to, if you look on the next one, just sort of conceptually, there's some landscaping areas that will be added to the front going around the building. And talking to the applicant today, there's also plans to do some landscaping along the Birch side, but they haven't, formalized those plans in any way. But they are intending to do that. Criterion 4 talks about site details. So there's things like dumpsters, storage areas, loading areas, exterior lighting, and signs. Most of those don't really apply here. There are no exterior trash dumpsters, storage areas, loading areas, lighting, or signs that are proposed. The church currently uses rolling carts for trash that they keep inside, and then they just wheel them out on garbage day, so they plan to continue that practice. Also, under this criteria, or this section of the zoning ordinance, there are required design criteria that say that front entrances in the MOR district must face the street. Building walls facing the street have to contain window openings, and parking areas shall be located behind the principal structure. The proposal meets these requirements. The front entrance would be along Elm Street, as shown here. There are windows on both Elm Street and then along the Birch Street side of the building, and the parking would be unchanged from the existing conditions, so that point is pretty much moot. So in addition to the zoning ordinance guidelines, there are the specific MOR design guidelines and analysis, so I'll run through those with relative quickness. The first deals with the facade zone, and it is strongly encouraged that new building additions complement the architectural style of the main structure. It's strongly discouraged, to have mechanical equipment in the facade zone. So the building additions in this case would actually transform the building into one cohesive architectural design. So complementing the existing architectural style is unnecessary in this case. In addition, the mechanical equipment is planned to go on the north side of the building, and it would not be in the facade zone. So staff recommends that a board finding that the proposal meets the design guidelines for facade zone. Next is building orientation and patterns. And it's strongly encouraged that building placement and general orientation be compatible with other structures on the block. It's also encouraged that additions incorporate common patterns and architectural characteristics found throughout the district. It is further encouraged that the use of architectural detailing and landscaping help new construction blend in with the block. So for the staff analysis, the building placement on the site would be unchanged, but it would extend closer to Elm Street on the south, and it would extend a little bit to the east as well towards the parking lot. The proposed setback would be just over 12 feet, and that would be quite consistent with other buildings on the block, which range from about 6.5 to 13 feet. The addition would provide it would provide an entrance along Elm Street, where one currently does not exist. And it would better complement the other structures in the area, which generally have their primary entrances along Elm Street. So staff recommends finding that the proposal meets the design guidelines for building orientation and patterns. Next is massing and scale. So it's strongly encouraged to have height to width ratio that's compatible with other structures on the block face. In this case, that would mean a building that's taller than it is wide. It's also encouraged to have decorative details and exterior materials to add interest, scale, and dimension to a building. It's encouraged that height and roof lines are compatible with other buildings found on the block face. It's also encouraged that a combination of roof lines with varying roof heights and pitches are used to break up the mass of the structure, and that roof pitch and shape is compatible with other forms found in the district. Overall, if you look at the height to width ratio, the building is actually wider than it is tall, but if you look in your memo on page 6, there's a diagram. It's sort of, this building is sort of separated into two distinct visual masses that are punctuated by these towers. So you could sort of see this as being two separate heights to widths, and that's indicated better on page 6 of your memo. But if you look at it that way, which is probably how folks will perceive it as they're walking by, then the height to width ratio actually does match up with other buildings in the area and on the block. This design has a combination of roof lines that would help break up the mass. It also add visual interest to the building, and the pitches of the roofs are compatible with others in the district. The octagonal towers, so you can see them here, they would be, and their roofs would be unique to the district, but again, these are important elements in Orthodox Church architecture, and it's the only one in the district. So staff recommends a finding that the proposal meets the design guidelines for massing and scale. The next is openings. I'm just going to skip straight to the analysis. The facades on the building have adequate openings to break up large expanses of walls, and they also reflect the architectural style of the building. Let me go to some of these axonometric views. So you can see there are windows proposed on all sides of the building, which would it helps break up, especially on Birch Street. I think there's not much there right now, so you'd be adding some windows over here, adding another window here. And in addition, the windows are in proportion to the facade, and there's a consistent rhythm to the window openings. So staff recommends a finding that the proposal meets the design guidelines for openings. The next criterion is outdoor living space. This is a church, so there's not really living space, but it does have a front porch, which would be compatible with the main roof line of the structure, and it would complement the overall composition of the building. And in addition, there are no balconies abutting single-family residences, which is strongly discouraged in the district. So staff recommends a finding that the proposal meets the design guidelines for outdoor living space. The next discusses materials. I won't go through each of these, but it is strongly encouraged to have long-lasting and durable exterior materials. And the proposal is to build the addition of brick that would complement, or that would match to the best extent possible, the existing brick that's there. The roof would most likely be made of metal, which is extremely durable and would be compatible with other roofs in the district. So staff recommends finding that the proposal meets the design guidelines for materials. The next criterion is for parking areas. Again, the parking areas would not change from the existing conditions. You can access them off of the alley, which is encouraged. Then there's also the existing decorative landscaping between the sidewalk and the parking lot that provides some screening of the parking lot. So we recommend a finding that the proposal meets the design guidelines for parking areas. The next criterion is landscaping. It is strongly encouraged to retain retain mature trees on private property and within the parkways and other city right-of-way areas. And there is a note that Green and Elm Street corridors are particularly important. It's encouraged to have new tree plantings on private and public property to replenish the urban canopy. I spoke to the applicant today, and they actually said they were open to that without any prompting from me. It's also encouraged to protect mature trees from root damage during construction, both on the subject property and on any adjacent properties. There are a couple more things that are encouraged that don't really apply. So for the staff analysis, at this point, no trees are planned for removal to accommodate the addition of the building. And the addition might, however, negatively affect the health of a couple of large trees. Let me find a picture of those. So these two trees, the one that's closer to you in this image is a city-owned tree. So that's in the parkway. And then the one further back is on the church's property. So the building addition would, it would extend out a little ways, so it might affect the root areas for these trees. Since I wrote the memo, I have talked to the city arborist about both these trees and ways that any damage could be mitigated. So in terms of, first the tree that's on the church's property, the city doesn't have any jurisdiction over that, of course, but the arborist asked, and the applicant is willing to do whatever, or to make whatever accommodations are necessary to minimize any sort of damage during construction and with the design, with the structural design of the building as well. So that should help mitigate any root damage for that. With respect to the city tree, the city does have rules in place where if damage is going to be done to a city tree, the arborist estimates how much damage might occur from construction, and then each tree has a value associated with it based on its type, its size, its current condition, its health. Obviously, an old, big, healthy tree is worth more to the city than a small, unhealthy tree. So there's a calculation that the arborist does, and then a fee would be paid to the city to help offset any damage that's done. I did a little bit of GIS analysis just to sort of get ahead of the game on that, so I made up a little map. It might be kind of hard to see the hashed area, but essentially took each of these trees, and then based on estimates from the arborist, I was able to sort of outline where the root system is estimated to extend. I added the additions, the proposed additions on here, and this should be pretty accurate. I overlaid I overlaid the survey that was done in 2012, so the existing building is spot on, and then based on the plans, I was able to measure where the additions would be. Sort of the hashed area, there we go. So this hashed area right here is the area that would be taken into consideration for that mitigation program I was talking about. And that, all told, that would probably be somewhere around $350 that the applicant has indicated they'd be more than willing to pay. So, so that is, I think that's about all I have to say about landscaping and trees for the time being. I will recommend some conditions in a minute, just so that what I just discussed is actually formalized. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, a full landscaping plan has not yet been prepared for the site, but the general plan, as I said, was to add landscaping to the front and to the west of the building. Staff recommends a finding that the proposal meets the design guidelines for landscaping, provided that there are conditions concerning tree preservation that are met by the applicant. That concludes the discussion about the design criteria. Just as a final note, the applicant did host a public meeting on January 24th. Just one person attended, but they did host a meeting that, was advertised to the surrounding neighborhood, also through a neighborhood listserv. Okay, so in this case, there are three options that the Development Review Board has. One is to approve the proposal as presented. The second would be to approve the proposal as modified by any specific changes, and the third would be to deny the proposal. Staff recommends that the MOR Development Review Board approve the site plan in this case with some conditions that I've conveniently added to this slide. So the first is that construction be in general conformance with the attached site plan and elevations, except any modifications that may be required by the Zoning Board of Appeals and or City Council. That's in reference to those variance requests. Number two is that structural designs and building construction minimize potential damage to tree roots to the greatest extent possible. And the final is about that tree fee, and it's that the applicant pays the fee as determined by the city arborist, consistent with Section 8 of the Arboricultural Specifications Manual of the City of Urbana and Section 2518 of the Urbana City Code, to offset any potential damage to the roots of the city's parkway tree. That concludes my report. I can take any questions. The applicant is here along with his architect, and they'd be happy to answer any questions you might have that I can't.
Any questions for staff before we move on to the petitioner? Nope. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so this is the point in the meeting where the petitioner can provide a statement outlining the nature of the request and present any additional evidence related to the request that would be helpful for the board in the consideration of the petition. So either or both of you are allowed to come on up and speak to this if you feel like there's anything else you need to add.
We're hoping to improve the accessibility of the...
Why don't you actually just come up and just we get it right here. If you have, it can just be, if you have a brief statement, that's fine. You just state, if you could just state your name first.
My name is Father James Ellison. I'm the pastor of St. Nicholas
Great.
Orthodox Church. We're just hoping to improve the beauty and the accessibility of the building, make it more usable for ourselves, increase the volume of the pastoral space inside, and that's it.
Great. Well, thank you. All right. Are there any other proponents of the request that? Nope. Okay. Any opponents of the request that wish to speak to this? Seeing none? And no others to be heard? Are there any additional comments by staff necessary?
Nope.
Okay. Since there was no evidence presented, there's no rebuttals. Would you like to present a summary of? No? Okay. Okay. Any questions from the board that need to be presented to either staff or the applicant?
Just to confirm, there was no communication? No communications came in on this?
There was none. I received a letter regarding the upcoming zoning cases, but that's not pertinent to this case.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I think that's it. So what we would do at this point is we would want to, or we need to take a motion that is one of the three options that are available to us to either approve the proposal as presented, approve it with any conditions, or deny the proposal. That motion would need to be made, a second provided. We'd have a brief period of discussion if necessary, and then do a roll call vote. So I would entertain a motion at this point.
Move that we approve it as presented.
Are there any conditions that you wish to apply, or any of the ones that they recommend?
I think they're taking a building and making it much better, so.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? No? Okay,
I think that looks like a great plan.
great. All right, can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Cho,
Yes.
Mr. Kunkel,
Yes.
Mr. Rush,
Yes.
and Mr. Weiskopf.
Yes.
The application is approved, and we'll formally close the public hearing on DRB 2018-01.
So just to confirm, that was with no conditions, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any new business, other new business? No. Okay. No audience participation, as there's none. Staff report?
No staff report.
No study session. We stand adjourned.